41,071 emails, 350 hours of voicemail, 744 tweets, 46 Facebook messages, 4 fake Facebook accounts, 106 pages of letters, and 1 cup of tea.
The UK comedian Richard Gadd began doing autobiographical one-man shows in 2016 as a cathartic outlet for multiple traumas he suffered in life, including being stalked by a woman who strangely referred to him as Baby Reindeer. His outrageous real-life experiences would eventually become the basis for the hit Netflix dark comedy The World Can't Stop Talking About. In April 2024, Baby Reindeer took the streaming universe by storm, easily shooting to #1 on Netflix and trending across social media and mainstream news. I watched it in one sitting and instantly became obsessed. As usual, I researched the series afterwards to see if it was based on a true story, like I do with most TV shows and films that move me the way this one did, and amazingly, it was. It figures, right? It's one of those stories that's so positively wild, it can only be true. You literally can't make this stuff up. It's too mind-blowing. The limited series stars Richard Gadd as himself, or a semi-autobiographical version of himself named Donny Dunn, which is incredibly cool and seemingly unprecedented. Beyond authenticity, this lends the narrative a whole nother level of gravity. It also stars Jessica Gunning as Gadd's on-screen stalker, Martha. In real life, Gunning is allegedly portraying a woman named Fiona Harvey, who came forward after the show aired and named herself as the inspiration behind Martha's character, although Gadd and Netflix have yet to verify her claims. This is where things get juicy, because apparently throughout the series, Netflix used real details and verbatim tweets from the real Martha, which inadvertently led to viewers hunting down the Twitter account, which belonged to none other than Fiona Harvey. And the resemblance between the actress in the show and Fiona is uncanny.
Who was it?
Martha, can you let go of my hand now, please?
I want names.
Martha, please.
Names.
Martha, please.
Names.
Martha, please let go!
Don't you dare!
Not just the physical appearance, but also the demeanor and the speaking inflection and the mannerisms. Jessica Gunning truly nailed it, and the fact that she likely never met or even saw the real Stalker before speaks volumes about her talent and intuition, and of course, Richard Gadd's storytelling ability. The show hits the ground running in the very first episode. Gadd's writing is a thing of wonder. It's clever, funny, propulsive, unsparing. The opening sequence is such an effective clincher. I'd wager the audience retention on this series must have been record-breaking. There's simply no way anyone could flick away after that opening line.
I felt sorry for her. That's the first feeling I felt. It's a patronizing, arrogant feeling sorry for someone you've only just laid eyes on, but I did. I felt sorry for her.
There's just something about the dynamic between these two that pulls me in. It's like the show You, but in reverse. This young, unassuming man taking the time of day to cheer up a visibly mentally unwell woman who isn't exactly traditionally attractive. It showed how sensitive and earnest he was right off the bat. Most men probably wouldn't have spared Martha a second glance, but Gadd did, and this gives us an insight into who he is as a person and how his compassion and naivety made him vulnerable to predatory people throughout his life. Throughout the series, it's illustrated for us just how unwell Martha is. After their first innocuous exchange, in which Donny paid her a modicum of attention, she developed an entire fantasy around their meeting, in which she began to view it as a romantic relationship. We are made to believe this is true to life, as the emails shown throughout the show are apparently identical to those received in real life. And although Fiona Harvey denied the excessive correspondence in her interview with Piers Morgan, she slipped up and said different things that lent validity to Gadd's claims. The emails are obsessive and profuse, dozens sent every day, totaling well over 40,000 in the end. According to the Radio Times, over the course of 3 years, Gadd said his stalker sent him more than 41,000 emails, voicemails totaling 350 hours, multiple social media messages, and 106 pages of letters. That's dedication. She had also sent him creepy gifts, which for some reason wasn't included in the show, such as a toy reindeer, sleeping pills, a pair of boxers, and a woolly hat, which is just so fucking creepy. This woman latched onto a fantasy with this man and would not let go. Her behavior became increasingly more psychotic and abusive, according to the show, and she soon began threatening all the women in Donny's life, including his ex-girlfriend and his new love interest named Terry, a transgender woman. Martha's attacks in the show would become so vicious, she would eventually essay Donny on a darkened street corner, toss soda into his girlfriend's face, and physically assault Terry. Once she realized Donny wanted nothing to do with her and was in a relationship with another woman, Martha began berating and threatening Donny relentlessly. Her insults were designed to tear him apart mentally, piece by piece, picking at his deepest wounds and insecurities, and were even sometimes homophobic in nature. She was scarily ruthless in her stalking and harassment of this poor man. At his workplace, at his home, and even at his comedy shows where he was his most vulnerable, creating a horrifying, omnipresent nightmare for Donny, day in and day out. This show is important for so many reasons. Apart from depicting the real-life horrors of stalking, a crime of which many people have fallen victim and struggled to get help from law enforcement across the world, but it also sheds light on male trauma. It tackles critical topics like assault from the perspective of a male, but also internalized homophobia, transphobia, and the fallout from his assault by a man he trusted. It shows the difficulty men have in navigating these emotionally perplexing issues and how they're typically unable to confide in anyone about them because the stigma surrounding homosexuality and male SA are so extreme as to be life-ruining for some men if these facts were disclosed to the people closest to them. Throughout Donny's stalking by Martha, his past trauma plays a heavy, inexplicable role in why he refused to report her for so long and why he was even susceptible to some of her wiles in the first place. She complimented him effusively and made him feel validated when it came to some of his more questionable comedy acts, which were bombing with normal audiences. This is one of those strange hallmarks of trauma, the vulnerability it inflicts. And also, love bombing is a common tactic used by abusers in the beginning with their victim of choice. The way trauma affects a person's sense of self-worth, their worldview, their trust of others, and their decision making is very heart-wrenching. It also affects the way they view abuse in its countless forms, and whether or not they're even able to identify it right away. In some cases, they even come to a place where they excuse it and defend their abusers, which is just tragic. It was heartbreaking to see Donny struggling with so many compounded and harrowing issues all on his lonesome, unable to confide in anyone, unable to be truthful, unable to seek guidance or help, and as a result, being re-victimized time and time again because he had no one to help him out of these circumstances. Law enforcement was all but useless, which we see time and time again in stalking cases, which sadly sometimes leads to the victims of stalking being killed or seriously harmed because no one realized the severity of their dilemma until it was too late. The laws regarding stalking need to change. It simply cannot be the case that nothing can be done about stalking until it becomes violent or fatal. Although some are fortunate enough to overcome periods of stalking when their stalkers are duped, jailed, or die, the lasting effects of this crime are manifold, especially psychologically speaking. Notably, the victims are prone to anxiety, depression, nightmares, and suicidal thoughts. The fear, paranoia, and hypervigilance it instills are not easy things to shake, nor is one's ability to trust in others automatically repaired after an experience like this. Gadd's story is powerful, timely, and desperately needed. There are so many people out here experiencing similar things who remain in the dark and silenced by their abusers, and I can only pray they'll someday overcome their plight, receive justice, and find healing for the scars these situations have inflicted on their psyches and hearts. Gadd's story is a beacon of hope, demonstrating the possibility of life after trauma, the power of storytelling as a vehicle to wresting control from the hands of your abuser, and being in the driver's seat when it comes to the narrative of who you are and how you want others to perceive you in this world. Following the massive success of Baby Reindeer, Fiona Harvey, allegedly the real-life Martha, came forward to condemn the series. In an hour-long, eye-opening interview with Piers Morgan, Fiona endeavored to set the record straight. Problem is, it was apparent from minute one that between her and Richard Gadd, she was by far the more unreliable narrator. Throughout the interview, where she denied all that she was accused of in the show and took every opportunity to disparage Gadd, Fiona exhibited deceitful behavior. She contradicted herself constantly, just like in the show, when she would say in one breath that she was a successful lawyer, but in the next breath, she would say she couldn't afford a cup of tea. Or how she signed off all of her correspondence with "sent from my iPhone," but Gadd never once saw her with an iPhone during any of their in-person interactions. She also made countless strange comments that corroborated the idea that she was an obsessive person prone to stalking.
I find myself getting lost on the internet, trying to find out everything about them.
See, the actress, we're both Scottish, we've both got dark hair. She's considerably younger than me. I think she's about 18 years younger than me.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 58. I'm a year younger than you.
She also repeatedly insisted that she had not watched the show, yet had shown up and implicated herself as the real-life Martha, having not watched the show. She also tried to deny the way she was depicted in the show while supposedly not having watched it. And she also continuously mentioned details that one would only be aware of if they had in fact watched the show. This all contributed to Fiona Harvey coming off as unstable and very dishonest. She struck me as a pathological liar or someone so deluded they were unaware of how much they were lying. It's clear this woman is deeply mentally unwell and could benefit from some sort of treatment and maybe even involuntary hospitalization. Furthermore, it has now come to light that Fiona may have been stalking or harassing other figures as well, such as Sir Keir Starmer, Janie Godley, and a lawyer named Laura Wray, who would appear on Piers Morgan as well shortly after Fiona's appearance in an endeavor to tell her side of the story. What Fiona Harvey did to this woman was arguably far worse than what she did to Richard Gadd, and that she tried to destroy her life, her career, and her family for many years after only a few weeks of knowing her.
And I couldn't believe it. From the very beginning, it was obvious it was the same woman. It was Fiona Harvey. You know, the actress who does a very good job, sounds like her, looks like her, mimicked her to a T.
And uses the same phrases which they found on the real Fiona Harvey's Twitter account.
Yes, I mean, I have a file full of papers which are letters from her, emails, faxes and so forth. And it's all identical.
Can you imagine this poor woman's terror upon the release of baby Reindeer, not only having her trauma unearthed after 20 freaking years, but now having to see her stalker as somewhat of a celebrity, being given primetime interview slots with mainstream media, having support groups formed in her name who are now actively attacking her victims, and this dingbat being able to tell her side of the story, however botched the facts of the matter may have been. It's simply horrifying, and it wasn't until I watched Laura Wray's interview with Piers that I realized just how deeply re-traumatizing this whole experience must have been for her.
So when you realised that your story was being recounted, albeit with the names changed, in Baby Reindeer, how did it make you feel?
Well, I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe what was going on, and I was in a state of shock for about a week. It had a very bad effect on me, and even now after 5 weeks or so, when I'm getting over it a bit, it's still very triggering every time I see something. And it just all triggers everything back to me every time I see it. It's very, very distressing.
During that interview, Wray claimed she gave Fiona Harvey a 2-week trial period of employment at her law firm based in Glasgow in 1997. According to the Scottish Daily Press, Laura is quoted as saying in a 2000 article, she was only at the firm a week. She kept writing letters saying she was desperate to come and join me, but I subsequently found out she's done the same thing with other female solicitors.
She was looking for a traineeship. She had been looking for a traineeship for about 4 years and couldn't get anyone to take her on, or at least I think she'd been taken on twice before me, but for very brief periods of time. So I received quite a number of letters from her. And they were in such familiar terms that I thought this must be somebody I've met somewhere, perhaps through the Labour Party. So then when I got engaged to Jimmy, she sent me a congratulations card. I did have a few concerns about her. She was quite She went into a bit of detail with me about her family circumstances, which I won't repeat, but she made me feel very sorry for her, and I said, okay.
She claimed Harvey made, quote, lots of threats to her staff and, quote, phoned up clients making remarks about me which were fairly threatening.
But on the hotline, she was heard to be saying to people, oh, you don't want to come here. I'll give you the name of another firm of solicitors. So we were paying all this money for this premium rated hotline, and she was giving the details of her competitors to individuals.
According to Wray, Fiona would be fired within a week for her alleged abuse. From then on, she began stalking Wray relentlessly, becoming more aggressive and threatening by the day. She would call up other solicitors to defame Wray and would eventually stalk her around the university when Wray had to attend additional classes, physically intimidating her and tormenting her between classes. The police and the school officials did nothing to help. Soon Wray heard word that Fiona had been harassing other members of the staff at the university, and she then was contacted by another solicitor who had given Fiona a job after her time with Wray and had fired her as well, and was now being subjected to the same harassment. She in fact called social services on him and reported that he had been abusing his children and nearly ruined his life. This, unfortunately, was like a prelude for what was to come for Wray herself. The increasingly unhinged Fiona would eventually report Wray to social services, emphatically claiming she'd hit her disabled son and demanding they take the child from her as some sort of sick form of retribution. Something similar would be brought up in the Netflix show Baby Reindeer when Donny wises up to who Martha really is and Googles her name to find the headline, "Sick Stalker Targets Barrister's Deaf Child." Speaking of the real-life incident, Wray would say she, Fiona, made some bizarre allegation that I was in my car driving and somehow managed to hit my son, who was sitting in the back of the car in the child seat. Eventually it was all dropped, but that's when I went for an interim injunction, meaning a restraining order. Thankfully it worked. She didn't defend it. We never heard any more from her. Baby Reindeer has been eye-opening, to say the least, on many levels, but particularly with regard to the trauma generated by SA and of course the many untold dangers of stalking. I don't think we'll see a show as hair-raising as this one for a very long time to come.